So what I will do, I will start with you straight away from the purchasing and procurement, straight away, rather than go through the high-level supply chain and logistics. Why? Because that was covered on session one. I don't know if you have attended or not. If you not, you still can have a recorded version um, of the actual uh, of the actual lecture itself, which is cover everything as well by detail. Now, looking at the screen, what is the supply chain management? I will go straight away to discuss the procurement part. Okay, if you can look at my screen now, there is the process of the procurement. What does that mean for us as a procurement? Procurement is very important at all level of project. Why? Because a procurement, when you can manage the goods and services you provided of your suppliers, you explore long list of vendors, you also have a, a process or submitting requisition for materials and same time purchase orders. You create your purchase order and you have invoice for it. Then you receive the order. Now, in all cases, for us, the requirements of receiving the order is gonna capture and include everything that identified within the purchase requisition and also the purchase order, and explore and select the vendors. At the end, you pay the goods when you receive the invoice or the order, and also you record that for your auditing standards. Now, you can see there, what's the procurement mean as a definition to yourself. Now, the procurement mean, it's a number and a sum of total efforts that goes into discovering the best acquiring supplies and best organization required functions effectively. This includes sourcings of supplies, sealing contracts, managing suppliers, and settling supplier invoices as when it's due. In all cases, we will look at it when you're managing procurement. You can do it in a number of cases. You can do it online, you can do it by emails, you can do it by hard copies or papers. Now, procurement and purchasing, you can go physically to the retail center or industrial center, or also you can go physically, you can do it online. Now, in all cases, you can then look at engaging and delivering this in the way you think it is the right way to do it. Now, that being said, the procurement is a sum total of effort goes in discovering, acquiring the supplies. What does that continue from a purchasing perspective? What's procurement mean? Procurement means outsourcing. Now, why are we outsourcing? We outsourcing because we have nowhere else to do the material. We cannot deliver the goods in-house. That's why we outsourcing. Because not something we can do in our business. That's why we outsource it. Sometimes many of you could do any kind of purchasing, any type of going out to the shops, making a procurement either online. Why? Because you need it. It's not something you can manage it, not something you can do it. In all cases, you can then cover it. Now, the outsourcing of these issues What's the outsource? It's a process of finding an external third-party supplier to take on management provision of a service. Secondly, used for non-core activities and when a business may not have the skills or the expertise in-house. So basically, what does we say? It's a process of finding external third-party supplier to take on the management and provision of a service. So it is an external process for management. Secondly, it's an activity for the business and a skills expertise that in-house not available. That's why we have to do it. Also outsourcing, allowing scaling up and scaling down to the need. So when you do procurement, you can manage your quantities if you need more, if you need less. At the end of the day, it is one of these things when you can manage your overall requirements. Fourthly, larger businesses and most likely to consider outsourcing. Those are looking for overhaul, transform their procurement functions, regarding particularly attractive options. So these ones outsourcing are looking for overhaul and transform, which is when larger business, they often have a multiple chain of how to outsource. And I would show you kind of video how large businesses are outsourced. I would share that with you as well in a minute. I hope you will see it. And why we do the outsourcing procurement. So I'll show you a quick video of a procurement process, and that will help you to understand a bit more. I'm sure you will see it as long as you see
couple of years,
my own.
We made Wix websites way faster, achieving dramatic improvements for co-websites.
Hi.
I will share that with you as long as you can see my screen. I'm sure you're going to see this one. Okay, I'm sure you can. So I will share that with you now.
Welcome to Education Leaves. In this video, you are going to learn what is procurement, the procurement process, and what's the difference between direct, indirect, and services procurement. Let's start the video. Procurement can be defined as the process of acquiring goods and services from a third-party vendor through direct purchasing, competitive bidding, or tendering process while ensuring the right quality and quantity. Procurement is most commonly associated with businesses because companies need to solicit services or purchase goods, usually on a relatively large scale. Procurement is usually a part of the input to a company that uses the procured goods or services in the making of their own final product. This makes it a very vital function of any business. Procurement involves activities such as identification of needs, sourcing, selection, negotiation, ordering, receiving, and payments. Now, come to the procurement process. The procurement process refers to the identification and implementation of certain steps to ensure that they can acquire goods and services to meet their requirements and achieve their objectives. The procurement process isn't the same for all businesses because it can vary according to needs. Each business has its own set of needs, and so it will have a different procurement process compared to another business, which has different requirements. Every organization has a unique procurement process flow. Steps involved in a procurement process are: Step 1. Identification of requirement. The first step in buying something is recognizing that there is a need for it. That could be buying a new item or reordering something when it is required. It is important that all the stakeholders be consulted at this stage to prevent issues later on in the procurement process. Step 2. Determination of the specifics of the requirement. When it has been identified that there is a need, the exact specifics of the product or service that is required is to be decided upon. This would include technical specifications or part numbers. Step 3. Sourcing. Once it is determined that a specific item or service is to be bought, the procurement team has to then do the research to determine the various sources that supply it. For repeat orders, there will usually be a pre-existing vendor list. For new item, suppliers will need to be thoroughly investigated to determine their reputation, speed, quality, reliability, and prices. Step 4. Negotiation and finalization of price and terms. For direct purchases, requests for quotes will be sent to the shortlisted vendors. The usual practice is to get a minimum of at least 3 quotes before making a selection. The company to procure from will be selected not only on price but also based on their promptness, reliability, and quality. If there is a bidding or tendering process for the procurement, the selection of the qualifying bids will be as per the terms and conditions set. Step 5. Purchase requisition and order. A purchase requisition generated within the company will be approved by the appropriate authority. This will then lead to the generation of a purchase order, with all the specifics of the order as well as the terms and conditions. Step 6. Delivery of the purchase order. The shipment notice is sent to the buyer wherever applicable. The delivery of the purchase order depends on the practices of the buyer and the seller. It can be in person or by email. This is also as per the specifications agreed upon by both the buyer and the seller. Step 7. Expediting. This involves creating the timeline for the prompt delivery of the requested goods or services after factoring in any unforeseen delays. It may also include information on the payment as well as delivery schedules. Step 8. Receive and inspection. When the product or service is ready, it is supplied to the buyer. It is the responsibility of the buyer to thoroughly inspect the supplied items if they match the agreed upon purchase order. The buyer can either approve or reject it. Step 9. Payment process. If the buyer takes delivery of the item, it is implied that they are accepted and the payment process starts. For the payment to be made, the documents relating to the order are studied. If there are any mismatches, they have to resolve them before payment. Once payment is approved, the payment is made as per the agreed upon modes of payment. Step 10. Record keeping and review. Both the companies, the buyer and seller, maintain their records for their auditing and taxation processes. The entire process should be under continual review in order to improve as well as settle any disputes that might have arisen. The steps of procurement detailed above vary from business to business, but the logical flow remains the same. Efficient procurement practices keep the flow of purchased goods and services quick and delay-free. Let's move on to the difference between direct procurement, indirect procurement, and services procurement. Direct procurement is the purchase of the input that a business requires in order to manufacture its end product. This is the raw material that is required usually for a manufacturing-related business. Examples: raw materials, machinery, etc. Indirect procurement is the procurement of services or input that are not directly used in manufacturing, but are essential for day-to-day operations. Examples: office supply, facility management, travel, maintenance service, etc. Service procurement is procuring and managing the contingent workforce and consulting services. For examples: professional services, software subscriptions, etc. If you want to read in details or download the PDF, go through the link in the description. Like, share the video, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.
Okay, I will just go back to them. Okay, I think that was a clear process about the procurement, step by step, and what we do in this regard. Now, I'm sure you looked at the strategy yourself of how this outsourcing would be from step 1 to 2 by looking at the supplier, putting the order, putting the invoice, and rest of it. Now, let's see what else we've got. Now, e-procurement, from the E number, it's mean email, you know. From the E is mean email, or typically described as a business to business. This is a rather broad description. E-procurement typically describe the business to business purchase and that are done online or over some digital network. This is rather a broad description on many transactions that happen based on modern technologies and a business and vendor partnerships. Think of things like Amazon, eBay, this kind of purchasing, and e-procurement when you do it. Many businesses, they do e-procurement. No, they're going to do it from Amazon and eBay. They can do it from any other business. They've got a lot of in-house. Now, this e-procurement is designed to work with common business process, so the software incorporates purchase orders, invoices, bulk shipping, and other commercial documents. Now, spend analysis. This is also will give you indication how much you're spending. When we said about purchasing strategy, what you need to know mainly about purchasing strategy is how much you're spending. So mainly the expenditures for you is really, really important. Now, that being said, it's really very important that we can manage the overall spending analysis from full visibility of the spending due to the purchasing strategy and identify the saving opportunity, the streamline. Now, make sure you have all these data-driven benchmark performance and rest of it. Manage risk and improve supplier performance. We need to make sure that all these are covered. Full visibility of spend, identify savings, streamline, manage risk, benchmark, data-driven, Now, what are we buying? How much have we paid? How much we have bought? Who are we buying from? This is all the key factors. Make sure when you do your assignment or anything in the future, you get hold of all these documents and the requirements of it. That's very important because that will give you a very big boost when you do your report and the understanding of the overall process start to finish. Now, what else do we need to study about the purchasing strategy? Now, purchasing strategy, it's something rather than very commonly wide in the market. I will share with you what's a purchasing strategy mean as a lesson as well in a minute, and how people deal with it as a strategy from purchasing, and how that affected. Now, there is 7 steps of the strategy of the purchasing, and I'll share with you now another learning exercise and video. But let's learn more about us here. What is the modern logistics management? It's a procurement activities in the procurement logistics management. Procurement activity or purchasing strategy activity, how may combine with various shipping, warehousing, and any inventory activities to form a logistics system. The purpose of logistics management is to obtain efficiency of operations through the integration of all material acquisitions, movement, and storage activities. When transportation and inventory costs are substantial on both the inputs and the output sides of the production process, that emphasis on the logistics may be appropriate. Many firms opt out outsourcing logistics, very functional and very good, because they don't have the expertise in-house. And that's what we said earlier. And that's where the purchasing strategy comes. Now, I will share with you now a lesson, how the potential advantage of all this. The modern perspective is traditional definition. Logistics is the process. What's the logistics is in the purchasing requirements and learning? Now, sorry, do you have any questions? Apologies, because it's only me and you at the call. There is no other students. So have you got any questions? Just type to me, yes or no. Alaba, have you got any questions? You still with me? Type yes or no. So thank you. I can see you typing. No questions. Great, great stuff. Now, if you can see the slide, the modern perspective of the logistics is the planning of implementation, control, efficiency, and purchasing. This finishes goods are related to information from point to origin and point to consumption for the purposes of conforming the customer requirements. Now, the components there are customer service, inventory management, your stock level, very important, transportation, storage and materials and handling, packaging, information processes, demand of forecasting, purchasing, facility location, reserve logistics, and that. So we can do all this really. That's a part of the purchasing strategy. Now, it's put in a number of steps. Same as when you want to purchase something, you do search in a number of options to a number of requirements, and that's when you're purchasing. That give you indication of what you can do yourself to manage as a business. It's one of these things where we can go out and go by Western. I'll share with you now the portfolio analysis of strategic, and we go from there. I'll share with you different type of video, and now literally in a minute. 1 second. We go.
Discover a great range of affordable sofas.
Can you hear it? Sorry, Alaba?
Welcome to the second course in global procurement.
This is regarding global procurement and the requirements of how we're gonna purchase things in a global purchasing way. We look at the transportation, how things happening, and all that. We go from there. Now, let me share that with you. Okay, cool. So we got Rashida in. Hi, Rashida. Good afternoon. I think we got you here at 3:30, slightly late, but thank you to have you. That's great that you be with us. It would be great that you are with us in this teaching session. Glad to have you with us. So I will share this with you actually. Second, please.
This is going to be on strategic sourcing, and I think it's one of the most important topics that we teach in procurement. It consists of a 7-step strategic sourcing process, and it was developed by A.T. Kearney, I think in the 80s. Many people have taken this and adapted it to their own needs in a 4-step or 5-step, but the ones I've looked at they basically cover the same topics underneath each one of the steps, just in a slightly different way or order. So what I would say is that this particular thing has been used when we were at Colgate. I used a similar thing at Mars. It really has stood the test of time. And the bottom line for me on this is that if you follow this process, it works. So with that, let's get started. First, as I said, I always do, I'll do the course expectations for you, or your learning objectives. The next 3 weeks, we're going to basically learn and understand the various steps in this proven 7-step strategic sourcing process. Hopefully, when you're done with it, you'll be able to discuss why it's important for the procurement department, but more important for those stakeholders we talked about in procurement basics. And you'll find that if you follow this, you will be successful. So let's go ahead and get started. So we divided into 3 weeks. We're going to go a deep dive into somewhere between 2 and 3 of the individual steps. So let's get started. So here's a question I always put at the beginning of each one of the courses, or sometimes in later on in the courses. But here's a question for you. Why do we want to strategically source, period? Why do we want to strategically source? I'll give you about 30 seconds Just jot it down on a piece of paper, and I'll be back to you in 30.
Okay. So he's saying to us, what do you want as a strategy of a source? Let's find out.
You want to be able to decrease cost. We've talked about this in procurement basics.
Decrease cost. That's very important. In a strategy in a procurement purchasing, decrease cost.
About, in a recent survey of chief procurement officers, 79% of them said that's the most important objective for them. So we've talked a little bit about that when we talked about the importance of procurement, but certainly reducing cost is included almost in every procurement department. But also, we talked about maybe increasing revenues, increasing volume, other than cost. We talked about maybe bringing supplier innovation, maybe better quality, such that the better quality produces a better finished product that you can sell more. Maybe you need to enter new markets and you have to support that endeavor. We referenced in procurement basics the need for speed to market. Maybe we can bring something in earlier such that the marketing people then can launch it earlier and increase sales. So I think the point here is that it's a dual type of reason you strategically source, both to decrease cost and increase revenues. So this is a 7-step strategic sourcing process that we're going to use. First, I think before we get into it, you might ask, well, do you use this for everything? Well, no, I think you're going to see this as a very involved process and takes a lot of work. What I would say is that any large item, either a material, direct or indirect services, strategic item, a critical item to your business, a large tactical item like maintenance, repair, and operating items, those types of things, you would use this strategic sourcing process. Yes, if it's a small item, you get a requisition, you find a local source, you would probably just order it, and you wouldn't spend a lot of time. But for the very large, expensive, complicated categories, commodities, this is the process you should use. So I'm just going to briefly go through these, and then we're going to jump in to the first two in this week. We're going to profile the category, talk about each one of these individually. You're going to develop category sourcing strategies. You're going to generate supplier profiles. You're going to choose a competitive method for you moving forward, a strategy, so to speak. You're going to select the supplier, negotiate, and put the contract in place. And then you're going to have some sort of continuous improvement, sometimes called the supplier relationship management program, on a continuous basis to evaluate the supplier that you have chosen. Underneath this, you'll see the prepare to source stakeholder outreach. It's very important to be successful, both your company, yourself, and your stakeholders. Involve with them in all of these 7 steps. So let's go ahead and get started. The first one, you want to profile the category. So you want to, if you're not familiar with it, you want to go talk to your stakeholders or talk to the people that maybe have managed these things before. You want to define basically what's in and out of the category. Right, you'll get an inkling of what the sourcing strategy might be. We're going to review that in the next one, step also, but you start to think about it. You're going to do some sort of a market analysis that we're going to talk more about in course 5, and and try to explore what it's in this category going on. And your deliverable here would be to complete a category profile. So what I'm going to do in this particular course is I'm going to use an example for all 7 of these steps, so you can get a pretty good feel for how it works. And I've chosen printed material. It's something we talked about in procurement basics, but basically printed material in the company, anything that's printed on a piece of paper. Now, a lot of the printed material, in the case of Colgate, was in the marketing department. So let's just use the example. So profile the category, use printed materials. You got to decide what's in and what's out.
Okay, now the first thing he's saying, there's a number of things. What's in, what's out as in a category. So you need to know what you're purchasing, what's in, what's out. You need to know what your analysis to spend total assets of the overall industry. How is the suppliers? Is there any technology-driven solutions? Things like that. That's very important from that perspective. It's very, very important to understand what's the strategy, an example that we need to follow on in a global strategy and purchasing. So that will give you more insight of how things happening in the wider world. Let's continue.
We talked a lot about a lot of printed material and marketing.
Apologies, Rashida, can you hear us as well? Rashida, just text yes, please, if you can, on the chat. Ah, yeah, perfect. You can. Perfect. Thank you very much. Apologies, I didn't give you the welcome introduction and that because you joined us slightly later, but we did that at the beginning. So we continue. Thank you.
Marketing, but there's also printed material in sales. There is some printed material in human resources and benefit areas. Supply chain has printed materials. So you have to determine what's in or out of the category. In our case, we looked at very broadly at all categories. You then would analyze the spend through your systems from a total company's perspective. Assess any industry dynamics in particular. You're going to learn about who the suppliers are in this mix. And maybe as you're talking to various people, there might be some new suppliers that you might want to consider. And lastly, is there any technology-driven solutions? And we did find something when we did our research. A lot of people are using kind of an online tool to be able to put orders in and get quotations back. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Second one is you want to do a deep category sourcing strategy. And you're going to want to basically try to understand, where's the buying power in this particular category, critical to being successful. And you want to determine some sort of sourcing approach that maximizes savings and value. And again, you're going to review kind of the sourcing strategy for the first couple of buckets because you're kind of honing that strategy into a final decision. The final decision, well, you're going to have initial sourcing strategy.
So major activities to understand the buying power. That's what, sorry, I found something on the chat. Okay, that was from Rashida. Sorry, coming back. So to understand the strategy of the global purchasing, to understand the power of your supplier, to understand the source, the position of your supplier, to determine, minimize the approach of savings, the value. This is very important from a purchasing strategy. And this is all really what we need to do in order to manage that savings and value opportunity, provide initial sourcing approach. Now, we understand the buying power and categories in a critical position in sourcing, and who's gonna really achieve that and how and why. In all cases, we need to look at, when you manage your purchasing and strategy, how things are happening, and we go from there. That's very important. So let's continue, see what we learn from this.
So let me give you tools you can use to be able to do that. The first one is portfolio analysis. And I'm going to show you in a minute what that looks like. But basically, you looked at critical suppliers, routine suppliers, leveraged, and bottleneck. I'm going to go through each one of these to give you examples. So this is called portfolio analysis. So if you're looking at your category, you might want to try to figure out where does your category fit in each one of these 2x2s. Okay. And you can see here on the left is complexity or risk. On the bottom is value. So if it's low, it's kind of a routine item. I'm going to give examples of each here. If it's a low kind of risk but high value, it's going to be leveraged. If it's a high, it's going to be strategic. And if it's high risk but low value, it's going to be bottleneck. So let me give you an example in each one of these. First of all, I should tell you that this is also, if you're familiar with it, been around procurement, it's also called the Krajcik matrix, been around since the 80s. We have to use the word portfolio analysis when I was at Colgate, and that's what I'm using here. So let's take some examples so you understand. So let's assume that you're looking at office supplies as a category. Well, office supplies, individually very small items, but it adds up to quite a bit of money each year. Pretty low value in general. You want to make it easy and efficient and be able for people to order that particular category. You probably put an app on your phone or maybe app on your computer, or people can order pencils and pens and have it delivered to their desk or wherever they need it. You probably want to be able to put a 3-year contract in place, not to worry about it, and maybe take an evaluation every couple of years. Very routine type of item. Leverage, on the other hand, is very high value, kind of low risk. Commodities kind of fit this particular area. Mentioned palm oil is one. It's a commodity, has a common specification. It's not really complex. You can order from any one of multiple suppliers, supplier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's
No, it's nothing wrong. Can you not hear me? at all? Can you please text? Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Did you hear my explanation about the strategic and routine purchasing? Proactive, reactive, or no? Anyway, I'll repeat it. No problem. Repeat it. Now, the type of purchasing as a strategy, we said there is a routine. What's that mean? Every month, we can then review every month the routine purchasing for the same material, same quantity, and everything the same. So that's from a routine perspective. Now, from a strategic perspective, we have the requirements are different. Why and how? From a strategic, first thing, routine, strategic, and leverage as a bottleneck. So the routine, first thing, low to high, strategic, that would be required, a different look. Then we go from strategic sourcing, 7 steps, and strategic sourcing in a part 8. So the routine are the one you do every month. The strategic are you do a month or 2 months ahead. The bottleneck is the reactive one. So let's continue with the video, see what's going on.
We had about 170, I think, in Colgate at the time. It's price oriented. All you got to do is basically you got the power, and you just need to select the right suppliers for your long-term base. Second one is 5-force methodology, and sometimes called Porter 5 forces. It's taught in MBA schools on a regular basis, many times in business strategy courses, and basically it's used many times to evaluate customers or acquisitions or mergers, those types of things. And we've flipped it here to look at procurement, and it works very well. So what you're trying to do is try to understand from a category standpoint really what's really important in this market, upstream and new entrants and substitutes. So first talk about the suppliers, and I'll try to use print as an example as we walk through it, right? But basically, there's a lot of suppliers in print materials, so they don't have a lot of.
So when you have a number of many suppliers, then that would be we look at it from a different way. It's all about how we're going to manage our suppliers in different fashion. This is really important. Because your suppliers is going to drive your purchasing strategy. Keep that in mind for your assignment, please.
Power, basically, it's a very price-oriented deal. New entrants, not in this particular case, but in some cases, if it's something made in China, maybe there's new people coming in, and we might want to consider looking them as for potential sources on a global basis. Bargaining power of suppliers. Are there a lot of suppliers out there? Do you have a lot of volume that you can give them? So how much power do you have? Are there substitutes? Well, in printed material, there is. There is, power of using the internet, not printing as much paper, and maybe saving a few trees. And basically, you want to take all this information and say, what's the overall supply market competition here for whatever category you're looking at? Before we jump into the printed material example, what I should tell you is that we're going to go through this much deeper when we review supply market analysis. So we'll probably spend more time there. So let's come back to printed material. We did a portfolio analysis. We said it's a leveraged item, very price sensitive, lots of suppliers. We have the power, so we knew that. The 5 forces said that we have the bargaining power. There's lots of suppliers, pretty easy for new people to enter the market, et cetera, et cetera. So we got that. We did learn, though, through these analysis that there was maybe something we should consider using a web-based design and sourcing tool that we found about that we didn't know about. So that was something new, and we put that in our category, strategic sourcing. So we have reviewed the first two, profiling the category, generate category sourcing strategy. Hopefully we involved our stakeholders here. We'd be able to run into the next few steps.
Okay, I think that was clear about the steps on the purchasing then. And let me view for you to go back to our strategic there of procurement. So the logistics of supply, we said we have a market and we have the cloud. Can you see in the cloud what you have? Sorry, has anyone got any questions before I move on? Apologies, maybe I'm moving in a faster pace because we don't really have many students to question and answer. So that's why we're going in a faster pace. But I will move to the COVID purchasing strategy in a minute. Has anyone got any questions at all? No, if you can just type yes or no if you like. Yeah, no, thank you very much. I don't know how many students we have, only 2. So that's why we're going very well with time, to be honest. We only have a few slides. The reason for that, because obviously not many of us as well. So it is sometimes could be, you know, like easy to get more time and use it when you have many students. But when we have only 1 or 2 students, it's almost like private lecturing. So 1 or 2 hours would be really, really quick. Now we can check and we will then advise whether we can find out how this is how this was happened. Now in all cases, it's something that we need to look at, and we go from there. So let's have a look on types of logistics: factory, overseas, logistics center, retail, consumer, disposal center. Factory, overseas, logistics center, retail, consumer, disposal center. Now let's see how these things are working from a factory perspective to logistics to retail to consumer. Now, can you see there the logistics strategy is coming to all the way to disposal center? Modes of transport logistics. We covered this actually in details, but let's look at the modern of a transport in logistics. Multimodal logistics UK members represents more than 90% of a freight moved by rail. Consign more than 70% of the UK exports by sea and air, and operate more than 200 heavy goods vehicles. That's over half the UK. UK in newly created multi-modal membership and special for the business who play that water and air freight either operating vehicles. So what basically is the transport are many. They are airplanes, trucks, ships, rest of it. So they're too many. They're far too many. More of the logistics as telecommunications. That's very important. Warehousing, also receive, put away, storage, very important in warehousing and stock inventory. And as you said, there is first to fifth party of logistics. Now, this is the first part of today's lecture. So now we need to move on to the strategic of COVID during Corona. Has anyone got any questions at all, please? Sorry. Any questions? No? Okay. No, thank you, Alaba. Thank you. What we do, we take, let's take 5 or 10 minutes of break. Hopefully that maybe give opportunity to students to join us at 4 o'clock. I hope so. and then we return, let's say, a 10 minutes break. That would be great. Okay. Thank you very much. Take care, guys. Bye. Let's return in 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Don't forget. Okay, hello. We're back in after a quick coffee break. I think I did hear some noise as well, which is a great thing. So that means you're still with us. Okay. Now, let me share with you the other for today. Here you go. Can you see my screen? Sorry, supply chain logistics during COVID. Just if you text yes or no, please. Hello, we back online. Hello. If you can type in yes or no, please. Yes, perfect. I think we got some yeses. It's great. Okay. Now, this one is very special and specific. Now, you remember, all of you, the purchasing, procurement, and supply chain during COVID was very challenging. And this is very important, which means for you, what has happened wrong? And many of you probably, you remember, we had issues with supply chain, which is how can you, when you start queuing on shops, when you start queuing on places to get bread, to get water, lack of supply chain, lack of logistics, and everything like that. It's one of these things, you know, when you need to think about what has happened wrong, and you remember the National Health Service, it's really was one of the people or one of the places where to found difficulties on how we're going to provide all these masks, all these supply chain, oxygen, one of these things. It's really important and very interesting for us to look at all this. Let's have a look. Global supply chain and logistics during COVID. COVID short-term impact supply. So we had a short-term and challenges and also long-term challenges. So what they are, let's review all this. What's the plan of activities? First thing, logistics routes mapping and modeling. Second one, volume of estimation. Third one, transport of condition. Fourth one, forward nominations, partnerships and airlines. Okay, logistics control, information management. So this is all ones are the ones are in information management and tracking global orders. Forward, partnerships and airlines, logistics control and tower, information management. Requirements of development and global logistics operational plan. Origin, destinations, size of cargo, priority, time of loading, type of commodity, things like that. The priority is the capacity, how much we got capacity, time of loading, capacity, airline and forwarded and space available, time of loading, the freight, how much expect time for loading, uploading during the purchasing. Need to look at delivery and all that. Type of commodity, which is the dangers of the goods. So this was the requirements for development of a global logistics operational plan. Mode of transport, air, sea, road, and multimodal. Size of cargo, size of boxes, destination, origin, rest of it. COVID initial stage of crisis. Respond, deal with present situation and manage continuity. Actions, visibility, substitute transport, supply insecure, cash and back. Value, proposition, initial risks. Short-term supply chain COVID impacts. Likelihood, very important. So this is one of the problems was really initiated by them. It's very important, which is really one of these things to look at. So we can then have a look. Now, what happened is a dramatic reduction in passenger vehicle traffic. April saw 40% drop of traffic. That was very important. At the same time, truck traffic increased. So that was give you an overall picture about what happened bad during that time. In all cases, what happened bad, it was issues to go with that, which delivers 80% of the goods. Short-term impacts of COVID, facilities coming offline, essential, non-essential, incomplete supplies. Challenges, real trend, false trend, reduces of incorporated challenges, opportunities, accelerated deployment and technology. These things like that we got covered. It's very important that when we know about purchasing during COVID, how that had an impact into us. Real trend, false trend, the cost of doing the business at that time. How client and pattern change. Demand forecasters have shifted significantly. Demand shifting to online channels at scale. Some suppliers will fall to meet demand. Inventory choices would be critical to business. Cash flow is essential for all. Governments are helping, you know. So that was all different level of purchasing. Survival, paradox, supply market client demand, paradox, operational model, and resilience. Challenges. What are the challenges during that time of purchasing in COVID? First, rapid shift of consumers, understanding how international supply works, how will inventory level change, what safeguard of customers requires. Challenge, ability for real estate market, search of political stability, labor, public sector, ability to support the remote work, recapture of foreign direct investment, accelerate, changes, onshoring near equals, right sizing and rescaling of talents, calibrating services to changing customer demands, changing well-tuned multi-decade processes, sourcing, approving new suppliers, shorter, less complex supply chains, accelerate digital adoption, capture business from changing behaviors, build more efficient and more transportation business processes, then finally building the program around it. There was a number of scenarios happening during COVID. Best scenario was the healthcare, which was really difficult to manage that time because a number of things, which is really seems to be different. One of these things, you know, it's really hard, you know. Mid-worst case scenario, you know, one of these things. Worst case scenario, we had all that. Tolerated offering of every scenario to support businesses to recover quickly from current situation. The global sourcing of procurement and that had time, we have a 1,500 global search practitioner savings 10%, project cover on that last year. So that was all the difficulties. Now I will leave you read this global logistics purchasing in a minute. I will leave you to it. If you can have a look at the screen. This was very important, happening to all of us during COVID. What's the difficulty? And then we do question and answers for a minute. Okay. So this is actually explain everything from logistics, industry partnership to logistic control towers to delivery and continuity of readiness. Now, this is actually how things was working during that time. COVAX supply chain logistics. Now, this is all the materials for today, fully covered. Now, because of the lack of number of students, we didn't really have a lot of questions and answer or engagements. But I will ask, is any of you got any questions, please? It would be nice to get a question so we can discuss more, because otherwise we finished everything fairly quickly. Have you got any questions at all, any of you? Rashida, Alaba? I don't know, you're working, are you going back from work? Are you... Yes. Sorry, I'm not really in this lesson today. Oh, you're not in this lesson today. Sorry, no problem. So we can, no problem, Rashida. What about you, Alaba? No. So if there is no questions, really, we can end the session and then. But you will try my best on myself. Yeah, of course. Yeah, no problem. Take care. I mean, at the end of the day, everything is recorded for this session, first session, second session, the rest of it. We covered everything that would be very good for your assignment, everything for the lecturing, everything's fully done and dusted. So if you have anything, any questions at any time, please give me a shout and we go from there. In the meantime, I wish you the very best. You go back to it. Yeah, go back to it anytime. Go back to the lecture number 1 videos and this one number 2. And then I'm sure you're going to pass your assignment. But this is all the lecture for today because the lack of students, actually, we've been doing very well on time and very quickly. So that was a very great session. Anyway, hope I see you all later again, but that would be perfect. And thank you very much for your time. Have anyone no questions? I don't know, we lost you, Ala, but I don't know what time is it where you are. I don't know what you're doing. But thank you very much for attending. And I will stop the recording when I know how to do that. So pause the share. That's first thing. And then second thing is to stop recording. Yes.